could very happily say that now we're live.
Now we're live?
Yeah, it seems like now we're live. It says now we're live, a couple seconds in.
Oh, I got a little beep thing, so that means we're good.
Okay. We're really live.
Wonderful. Yeah, thank goodness that you actually have some knowledge in terms of like keeping up with like live stream situations like that, or like getting notifications for it. You know, because if it would have been up to me, we would have just kept talking and talking. And
basically, Matt just saved our bacon.
So sorry we're 7 minutes late, but we're here. We're at it.
Yeah, honestly, we were already here and cooking for 7 minutes prior to this. We tried to start just exactly at 5:15, but we totally forgot that we have to click live stream on 2 applications and not just one. We're on our 30th episode altogether? Like,
holy shit, are you serious?
Wait, 30 with us?
No,
or
like
30th
like as the lethal introspection altogether.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, so we're getting so close to getting it entirely down.
Cheers to 30.
Yeah.
That's a new milestone. 30.
Yeah. And if it's not, hey, comment and tell us how many we actually did. Because I'm not going to go count it.
Yeah, we're not counting anyway.
We're at roughly
But we're at 30.
Patting ourselves on the back.
Okay. All right. So.
Today we watched
The One I Love.
What did you think, Jose?
I, once again, will say that this movie was absolutely wonderful. To preemptively answer Hannah's question, I thought the movie was great.
You got a sneak peek.
Yeah, I got a sneak peek of her questions already. So, yeah, I thought the movie was great. I loved the minimalist aspect of the movie. I loved the fact that there was only 3 cast members throughout the entire thing. And to reiterate what we were saying in our pure lost in dead space time, the fact that Ethan and Sophie, the characters, had to pull double duty the entire time. Elizabeth Moss and is it Mark Duplass?
Mark Duplass, yeah.
Yes. Duplass. Yeah.
You should know that after Creep.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, so a little different character than Creep, too, right?
Oh, yes, Martin. Yeah. He's married.
Well, we don't know that Creep.
Yeah.
I don't know how you're making that assumption.
Actually, the ideal Ethan is a little bit similar.
Oh, 100%. Yeah, you're right. He has the more manufactured. No, it's more of a manufactured charisma at that point, right? Because, like, just to reiterate everything, the foundational Ethan, we're gonna call it, Ethan A. He is a very prickly individual. Very he's a very investigative guy, but at the same time, he has a very warped conception as to what he needs to be investigating about every single aspect of both his life and the actual actions that occur within the movie.
Yeah. Defensive.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, they really show you right from the very beginning in the therapist's office the fact that he is so ready and inclined to try to pave over his own mistakes and to pave over his having cheated on his wife, just for the sake of essentially by personal efficiency inside of his mind to a degree. I think just to get inside of his head and genuinely be introspective for the guy, I would imagine that he feels that since Sophie has already made the decision to want to stick it out, why does she essentially at this point, I would imagine, right? Because he's a very pivoting guy, it would feel like, that he would eventually come to feel that every single instance that would bring back that fault would be, just another, citation or demerit to whatever it is that they're trying to rebuild, essentially, because that's essentially what the whole beginning prelude of the movie is like they're trying to showcase a scenario where this moment has already happened and the moment was spontaneous and it was something that was quite kindling and merging, and that it did merge them together as a couple to a degree, and now they're trying to recreate it X amount of years in the future, and a gigantic hole, I guess, a gigantic crater of like trust also, within the landscape of their relationship too, and then just trying to gloss over back to happier meadows essentially, and it just doesn't work.
Well, and I think that I think it's a defense mechanism because I think they never had that conversation. Probably for him, the defense mechanism portrayed itself in the sense that, like, okay, it was found out what happened. We make a decision on whether or not we move on. And then as soon as she made that decision that she wanted to try it, he didn't want to hear about that anymore. He wanted to rebuild. Because later in the movie, she asks ideal Ethan, why did you do it? Which gives us the assumption that, like, he's never really answered that question for her.
Or at least not to her satisfaction.
Correct, yes.
And she wanted to hear, like, the best answer and see, you know, if it made her feel any different about him.
Mm-hmm.
And it most certainly did, right?
Mm-hmm.
Like,
oh, yeah.
The issue
She
just
jumped
really,
his bones right after.
yeah, the issue really did just come. The issue really did just come down to about a paragraph worth of sincerity, and the guy was unable to do so. And yeah, we were making the joke about the fact that this movie, this movie kind of broke our normal rule because Kimmy showed me the trailer for the movie, and when I first showed the trailer, the trailer shows it to you as some sort of genuine rom-com romp with a little bit of a funny Twilight Zone-ish kind of situation. Mm-hmm. Like, I'll tell you what just from the minute and a half that I saw, what the movie that I built inside my head, I thought that it was going to be a situation that there was no big cheating thing. It was just them literally going through a placid moment in their relationship. Mm. And they're like, okay, like they have a fun therapist who, you know, might be, you know, wacky interdimensional creature, who knows, you know.
We got to come back to that, by the way.
Yeah, for sure.
Okay.
And he takes him to this fun place, this fun cottage, you know, where like you get clones and doubles of yourself and things like that. And I honestly thought, again, from the marketing that
they gave away clones and doubles.
Oh yeah, 100%. Yeah,
oh,
they gave that.
Wow.
But again, they gave it away with with a completely different context.
I have words for Kimmy after.
Yeah, they give you an entirely different context as to why things are happening, mm-hmm. And I honestly thought that the movie actually happened in like longer spans of time. Like I actually thought that it was going to be a situation where they keep coming back to the cottage, and like as time comes on, like there's like a diminishing returns kind of situation from coming back to an ideal when having to live with like the normalcy of like.
That'd be a great sequel, honestly.
But that's a completely different.
That's a completely different movie. Yeah, exactly. And that's the movie that I was quote unquote not even sold, but just, you know, I guess from my imagination, just, you know, thought that that's where it was going to. And we made the joke about the fact that imagine being a couple who has had, you know, an issue with cheating from either direction, and then they see the trailer for this movie thinking they're gonna go have a nice fun time, and then right in the middle of throughout the entire movie, it's just an examination of why the cheater's got to be such a piece of shit who can't communicate appropriately, and, you know, just actually be held accountable to their actions. And
can you imagine any one of those unfortunate boyfriends who was lucky enough to keep their girlfriend after they cheated in that uncomfortable car ride home?
Especially
so
if they're
what
still...
did you think of the movie?
Especially if they're like still in the position where like Ethan hasn't had like any sort of sincere, like they just glossed over it. You know, they're like, come on, babe, come on.
Like, it was kind of your fault too, babe. I mean...
She's like, I knew it. I knew they would say that.
Yeah, who knows how many couples in relationships this movie's.
Yeah, so it's like, this is one of the most like emotionally messy comedy dramas, I guess you could say, that I've like, especially with the tight cast of two. Yeah. Excluding Ted Danson.
Why would you exclude Ted Danson?
Because they put him in 3 minutes of this fucking movie, and they put him in the lineup.
And was it even 3 minutes, really?
Maybe.
He appears
in 2 scenes,
yeah.
He
crushed it.
Yeah, he pretty much does exactly the same role as in The Good Place, and he's like, got it, done.
It's literally the same thing.
Yeah, exactly. Just give me another suit.
He's even dressed the same.
Yeah, exactly. Give me another suit, I'm gonna put another tie. Alright.
Boy needs to wear
the same emote, like the same emotes and everything, like.
Yeah.
It's just recycled lines.
Yeah, so when did The Good Place come out? Because now I'm suspicious.
After, I think. I think the one that I love is, 2014?
Yeah,
something like that?
Oh, man. Well, somebody's got to answer to something then, because either The Good Place has something to answer to this movie, because honestly, it felt like some sort of purgatory situation. Like if you're really thinking about like the magical aspects
for
of it, like they're
sure.
stuck in like a bubble, right? That essentially almost like the bells of heaven pretty much destroy your ears like dogma style, like
And once again, he's
Right.
the arbiter
Mhm.
of this purgatory situation.
right.
Which,
And the doppelgangers are very privy to the rules, right? Like they understand exactly what it is that they're trying to accomplish in order to be able to, I guess, leave to a particular degree. And this is where I guess get more into the more nitty gritty aspects of the movie. That obviously we're not going to get into any conclusive answers, but I think will be very fun to speculate, such as. Are the people who are Ethan and the doppelganger Ethan and Sophie, are they the black couple that were there prior to, if we're going by the chronology of the
I
You
get
know,
hung up on that, honestly, because I'm not sure if it's, they never really covered if it's like a replacement thing, you know, if
Yeah.
they're like otherworldly kind of creatures that are thrown in, or if it's like the previous couple, whoever ended up staying, presumably a doppelganger and a real person,
let's use the evidence.
are the next
Let's use
round.
the evidence we have, right? The computer. The computer begins with them having a beginning voice, right? That slowly becomes modulated, or it remodulates itself in order to be able to eventually reach at what is the desired, Ethan and Sophie for that particular aspect, right?
Yeah.
And then it makes me wonder, it's like, okay, so unless these are like out of the box clones, which they can't be obviously because they have a past that they obviously want to like escape out of.
Yep.
Right.
Like are they
Oh,
Or
and whoever
maintain.
is left behind is presumably in love.
Well, the one Sophie was saying the whole thing is to get them to fight against one another, so that
the couple,
So that
Yeah, but the
previous
ones left
couple.
behind aren't necessarily the original couple. They want the new couple coming in to fight against each other.
Mhm.
So who's left behind can be.
Oh, so you're saying it might always be one left behind sort of situation? Like
I think regularly it is, because all those reviews were like newly in love or back in love or whatever that is.
shit.
But I
So
do
it's
think
like,
at the beginning of the movie when this idea was presented, it's been a long time since I've seen this, so
Okay.
I feel like I went through this process again. When they first got here and I like understood what was happening, I was like, oh, technically this does make sense if these doppelgangers stay in the guest house and they don't figure out what's going on, because they go in, they have a beautiful night with their husband or their wife, they go out reasonably from that, they're feeling extra nice to their partner, and then that builds on itself, and then they can leave, literally reset, like Ted Danson's character said, is hit the reset button. So I think it makes sense from that perspective, but also if they leave with one of the doppelgangers that they fell in love with, it makes sense that way too.
And I would, at this point, it would also make sense that both doppelgangers actually don't love each other. Like they're kind of out for self at this point, right? Like, although they both have to play, because they don't actually have to be a couple with each other, other than like that moment when they decided to reveal themselves, and
Yep.
like the beginning of the third act.
And do they even do that every time?
Exactly right.
Right.
And is that just a gist that these guys are trying to do? Like, is it that every doppelganger kind of maybe learns a new rule? You know what I mean? As time goes on, because if you as a doppelganger don't bother to try to open the doors, you know what I mean? How will you ever know if you can actually get out or not?
right.
But again, if you're already thinking about the fact that I was originally a visitor who got stuck here, you would be far more privy to the rules because the last
Yes.
doppelganger has already tried to,
Yep.
So we can then imagine that perhaps the reason why Ethan number 2 is such a saboteur as he is because he's maybe already been stuck here more than once. It
Right.
could very possibly be that he's beginning to get highly like cabin feverish about like so he's like trying to accelerate everything, every single aspect about like the wedge has to be driven faster.
And maybe Sophie too is there because she fell in love with Ethan too, and
Yeah.
that's how she got left behind.
Initially, and she got left behind the first.
And this could exactly
previous
happen
one.
to Sophie 1 now, which and she thinks that now we'll be in an idyllic situation together. Well, Ethan 2 will show his real face, let's say, and be
Right.
like, oh no, get the fuck away from me.
Yeah,
like
I'm just trying to get out
the
of here.
whole point of this situation is for us to try to, mean?
Right.
Like, try to get out of here. You know what I mean? Like, you were the pawn that I was trying to use to get out, and like, it's
Right.
not. It didn't work out. You know.
So full spoiler. Oh, I'm sorry.
Well,
Go
I mean,
ahead.
yeah. I can only fucking hope so. Didn't we put that in the title?
Yeah.
Okay.
So at the
Your
end of the
fault.
movie,
Your-
when we were wrapping it up, you looked at the two Sophies and you said, "I know which Sophie is which Sophie." And I don't know if I did the first time I watched the movie.
Oh no, I didn't either. I was completely. I said that
okay.
out loud, thinking that I knew what I was thinking. I knew my shit.
Okay.
You know, but I was very quickly showcased to be wrong.
Okay.
In the very next scene.
I thought it was foreshadowed.
No.
No, not the conclusion.
Oh, you genuinely thought it was foreshadowed.
No, I think which Sophie is which Sophie in that later scene was foreshadowed, because at the beginning, how you tell which Sophie is one of them is not happy and the other one is happy. So I felt that in that scene, even though you could get confused because like Sophie 2 is in love with Ethan 2,
Mm-hmm.
I felt like the unhappy one, or the one that looked the most conflicted, was clearly the real Sophie, where the other one, who was like reassuredly nodding, was not.
Mm-hmm.
And that's what I'm saying in terms of the fact that it really reinforces the fact that they're both out for self. You know what I mean? Like,
Yes.
there isn't an action. Like, it isn't like they come in like a Barbie Ken doll like set together and like, we're just trying to fix your marriage situation, like some sort of like Westworld android kind of thing, right?
Oh, so she doesn't even really love him. That was her play
Exactly.
to get out of there.
Yeah.
Right.
Exactly. Yeah. Exactly.
Yeah, that's
Mhm.
how she tricked.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I really like this idea now that you've presented it of like, it seems to me that it is probably the case that regardless of the couple that comes in, the couple that's left behind, if it is the case that it's always one or two people that are left behind, then it probably is that it's one all the time, and that the other one is sucked in, and then it's just this back and forth replacement of the guy and the gal over and over again.
So here's the thing, is that's exactly it. My impression is that someone stays every time and someone leaves every time. And the reason for that is it's a marriage retreat where these are couples that are going through real problems.
Mm-hmm.
And at the beginning of this movie, I really, really empathized with, like, Sophie's character.
I mean, who wouldn't? Ethan's a piece of shit.
Well, not only that, but, like, I'm going to assume that most of us have been in, like, a dying relationship,
Of some
And it's
kind or
like,
another,
you spend that period of time in the end of the relationship where, it sucks, And if I walked into, like, a situation where I was with that person and it reminded me of when we first met and felt like that, who wouldn't be totally confused by that? It's a winning hand.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, the only issue at the end of the day, I guess, would be your propensity for wanting to keep yourself in that idyllic place, right? Because if you're the kind of if you're the one of the let's say incoming couple that's like, yeah, I just like, oh, it's perfect here, you know what I mean? Everything seems to just appear out of nowhere, you know what I mean? And we can just hang out here forever, you can most certainly be suckered in by one of the doppelgangers that's wiser to the. Yeah, like there's.
Well, she didn't want to go at first.
Who
He
did?
was the one that said, "I'll try anything," and she hesitated.
Oh, I thought you meant she was like, "I'm not leaving." When Ethan.
Oh no! After
finally
she met the
confronted her.
doppelganger, it was all over for her. But like, I just
Oh
mean,
jeez, you think it was that quick?
I mean, I feel like I watched that process.
Yeah.
But I feel like she hesitated to go to like a marriage retreat because I don't think that she was feeling very optimistic.
Oh,
about
like
the
she
relationship.
even wanted to try to fix it in a way. Like
Yeah,
she
when-
thought it was already going down the
When the
tubes.
therapist brought it up in therapy, it like Ethan's character immediately said, "I'll try anything,"
Mhm.
and the scene ended without her having said anything.
Yeah. Yeah, it's true, and I mean, it behooves him to want to try everything, right? Because he's the one that has already essentially committed the gravest error in the relationship, anyways.
Mhm.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, man, it's very confusing. Just because the inception of the doppelgangers just changes a lot of the ways that it works, right? Because it's like, because it could also just be, that the doppelgangers are just created on site to want to just do that, right? Like they,
Right? It could
like
be.
in some sort of like Adam and Eve kind of situation that they're created, set up, with these particular modalities and archetypes, but a little bit better, but tweaked a little bit better than the people that are actively coming in, and because of that, like they have, I mean, at that point, just the more, because it's not like pre-planted, right? Because they have to like call like family members, and they have to like call,
Figure out where they live.
yeah,
and,
they have to do a whole bunch of actual digging, so it isn't as though it's like some supernatural, like, uploading or downloading into their mind of being like, oh, now you're Ethan and now you're Sophie.
Well, and how do they know what they want was the question that I struggled with the whole time, because you can learn people's pasts, but they seem to have it down to a science where they were like the first day that Ethan's character stayed with Sophie too, she made bacon, and he was like, Sophie hates it when I eat bacon.
Yeah. This brings
They
up the
seem to
question.
know something on level 2.
Well, this is it. See, okay, so maybe the initial scenes with them with Ted Danson sheds a tiny bit of light on that, because it'd be like a psychic looking you up on Facebook or something in advance of you coming to figure out what some quirks might. But if you're having like an intimate conversation with a couple going through marriage troubles, you're probably going to glean a lot of information that way. So that does lend credence to the android sort of ish hypothesis that you're bringing up here.
That like they actually aren't like the past couples, but are like a fresh set of beings. Let's just say whatever type you want.
Yeah, because what makes them look like the next people?
Yeah. Yep, exactly. And what would keep them from telling them like, I didn't used to look like this? You know what I mean? Like,
yeah,
like,
why would you
like,
say that?
Yeah, like
this
you.
Is me.
Yeah, like this is what I used to look like. Like I would imagine that would be something that you would probably.
Oh, you're probably not getting out if you do that though. It's like, you were a man.
So then, the one picture that we get from the computer when he's snooping around on there for the sound files and shit of him and Sophie, but not him and Sophie. Maybe that's like a pre-planted picture of the two androids getting out.
Okay.
Right? For the next couple that comes in to look on through the happy pictures of the previous couples or whatever. Because that's the one like wrench in my thought is, what was that picture? What was the point of that picture?
That was the two doppelgangers. I thought it looked like it was clearly them.
So just to showcase like if anybody else were snooping, except for Ethan 1 or Sophie 1. I don't know, it just seemed like a weird thing to throw in the scene there.
Yeah, also the power, I mean like the power fluctuations and like reality really, and like how everyone, like you can't enter the guest house, you know what I mean, when other people are inside of there, like it pretty much locks itself down in an almost supernatural way.
Unless you go together.
Yep, unless you go together, and then yeah, like in that instance, like okay, it actually does make the story a little funnier to think about the fact that there aren't like holograms, because I initially thought like they just click on and off, you know what I mean, initially, but they're like actually running around, like every single time one of them like is coming in, the other one has to come out. Like what actually is like the movement situation in that kind of way.
Where did the bacon and eggs go? And the smell
and
of
the
bacon.
smell of bacon.
You can't get rid of the smell of bacon in 5 minutes.
Yeah, exactly. They make a very apt point about that whole situation.
Yeah, we all know that that's impossible.
Yeah, because I mean, what it looked like to me, and I wrote that down in my notepad over here, is that it looks like every single when an individual walks in, like the guest house has like a character profile, for like where the last things were at when you were last in there, right? And then
ooh, no, it passes time though. Because when Ethan came back in after he left from breakfast being cooked, there was literally a leftover plate of eggs and bacon, and when he took a bite of the bacon, she said it had been sitting out for a while.
Yeah, that's another thing too. I also thought that there was some form of like time dilation situation happening at the beginning that they don't, because especially I don't know whether that was like a bit of like a dropped plot point that they just kind of didn't want to continue like digging into, because that's kind of what it felt like when the first time she went in there, when she didn't believe him, you know what I mean? He starts snooping around because like, oh, what's taking so long, like. I honestly thought that they were gonna go for like a whole I was in there for like 30 seconds, like I honestly like went in and out,
Oh, sure.
And like it's been like say 2 minutes, and then you can
Right.
figure from there. You know what I mean? Like, okay, so every 30 seconds in there is about 2 minutes out here kind of situation. And but I would maybe that's just the drop plot point that they just like we don't want to have to think about that too
I
hard.
mean,
Like,
it's already fucking really complicated.
Yeah.
Trying to keep all this shit straight,
Yeah.
who's who and what's going on. But yeah, so the thing that like really gets me with this movie, like it's very fun. I like that it's funny. I like that the Duplass brothers put a lot of comedy in their like very strange movies that they make because it sort of saves them for me. But the like what really got me about this movie is like how weird and uncomfortable and like strange it makes you feel putting yourself in either Ethan or Sophie's shoes throughout the story, thinking about like what would I do? What if me and my partner talked about this and we were into it? Would we be into it? Is it cheating on your spouse if it's with the copy of your spouse? Is it unhealthy? Is it like all these weird questions that you have to sort of play through as you're watching the movie? Like
I see. Yeah, you're entirely right, and I think that like the characters, for example, Ethan, he has the right mentality for like the circumstance. He just has a very distorted use of it, right? Like he wants to be investigative about like the whole situation, but he wants to do so in a very dry, like pop the bubble kind of thing, about it, as opposed to using like, let's say, like accepting to a particular degree that this is either high sci-fi or a fantasy situation to you. You know what I mean? Like, okay, we've already stepped across that line. It's either magic or aliens doing this to us. What's the lesson to be learned here? You know what I mean? Like, who's wasting all these space credits to like teach me this lesson?
All these space credits. Yeah, it does kind of remind me of like the Futurama episode where Leela and Fry go off to the one like couples retreat planet or whatever. Very sci-fi like that. Yeah.
Yeah. Oh, and not only that, but this is actually this is a positive inversion of that Rick and Morty episode where like where they were what are their name Randy and what's the parents' names?
Oh, Jerry and Beth.
Jerry and Beth. Yeah, they go to that therapy situation.
Oh, right.
And they get to see their ideals of themselves. Yeah.
It's very much like that, but it's like the ideal version as opposed to like...
like positive idealism in this kind of way of being like, what's the best way of looking at at each other.
Yeah.
And what I really, really hated the fact that, again, it just makes Ethan be such a piece of shit, in my personal opinion. The fact that his personal consideration of what better Sophie is a more Stepford-esque version of her. Like
it annoyed me.
Yeah, it was really, really bad.
But at the same time, he didn't give her the time of day. The Sophie that he wanted was his Sophie. Like they made her like a little more feminine, like a little more.
Yeah, like she most certainly gave him more coquettish eyes all of the time.
With like her hair pinned back, and she always had clothes hanging off her shoulders and stuff. But he didn't spend any time with her.
Yeah,
he had no interest. What he wanted was the Sophie that he came with.
Which is actually a bunch of bullshit, right? Because at the end of the movie, it showcases the fact that it isn't necessarily true. Like, he was entirely willing to essentially, do away with any more skepticism about that situation.
But
because
what
it's like,
there's no going back.
Huh?
Yeah. Can you go back? Right.
No, but at the same time, doesn't it then showcase essentially like a devaluing of your principles if your big huff up, at the beginning of the movie was, oh, you're not the real Sophie, you know what I mean? How can I ever actually take you seriously, kind of situation.
Oh, that glosses over, I think, the biggest thing. You left your wife there. Mm-hmm. What is she going through right now? That's the big thing. That's
I guess at the same time, though, to be perfectly fair in every aspect, kind of fuck Sophie from Ethan's perspective too, because if she is the genuine Sophie, right? Like if the Sophie that actually stayed is the real Sophie, she made no attempt to try to like
which is a whole other thing. Yeah. She didn't even tell him that he was taking the wrong Sophie.
Yeah. Yeah, because
she loves Ethan too.
she probably did want to stay,
With
even
Ethan
if it
too.
meant being trapped in this weird pocket.
Yeah,
dimension.
because she didn't really give an answer as far as I remember in terms of them being up in the attic. Like Ethan too just came in and then things just got really fucking weird, and then they started fighting each other.
But I
You
think
know.
Ethan 1 would have taken real Sophie if he had known.
Mm-hmm.
10 times out of 10 he would have taken real Sophie. But at the same time, the flippant attitude at the end of it when he just goes to eat breakfast, probably partially, impacted by he's been living happily with her for at least a while.
Mm-hmm.
But that's just the thing that I can't get over.
And you know what it makes me wonder too is if that is the Sophie B essentially showing her hand in that way.
Sophie
You know,
B.
Yeah, being like, okay, listen, like we've been here a little while now. You know what I mean? Like so at this point, it's like I'm gonna give you the tell. You know, because if you want to go back to like the narrative, the themes within the movie. You know what I mean? Like that was her tell essentially. Like the bacon was her tell.
He told
and
her.
he was like, okay, well, like he accepted it for what it was. You know, I guess at that point he did go all in. You know what I mean? To what to this new consideration of being. You know.
But this is after a little bit that he's actually, because he didn't mess around in the guest house. You know, he didn't get to know Sophie too. But after he thought he left with his wife, he then lived happily with her. Like they seemed like they were having fun that morning. He got a taste of what it was like to have a happy marriage with his wife again.
And, you know, that actually adds more credence, in my personal opinion, to the fact that these are fresh creatures.
Right.
Because you'd imagine that if these were the creatures that are just trying to get out's sake, you know, there might be some sort of looking for your lost family, or like, you know, or trying to figure out what, you know, who's doing what to who, you know, like.
Also, this lady is like, technically, Ethan 1 never cheated on me, so whatever.
Yeah.
Like, I'll fucking.
Yeah, but who sizes up both those Ethans and is like, oh yeah,
Yeah.
Ethan 1.
Ethan 1. Well, Ethan 1 has a ticket out of the pocket dimension.
Oh, yeah, that's
Yeah.
true. It's a major benefit.
And much like most men, sometimes having something nice in your pocket usually does the tipping, you know, adds the tipping aspect.
Boo!
I'm gonna give that a 7.5.
Yeah.
I liked it.
I like it.
I like it. Also, like, you know what? At that point, you can't go back to Sophie 1. You know how fucking pissed off and ridiculous? Like, she's gonna be crazy. You can't go back there, period.
Yeah,
you gotta move on with your life.
That's what I love most about these types of movies, is just the subtle, you know what I mean, unspoken implications of what, you know, having these kind of things happen in the universe, you know, mean, you know. Because, yeah, again, I am completely of the belief that Ethan 2 does not in any way love Sophie 1. And he is just actively trying to do whatever he can.
I don't think so either.
Much like any mail order wife or mail order husband, he is just trying to do whatever the hell he can to get that green card out of this pocket dimension.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And then and you know what? Maybe Sophie 2 is doing the exact same thing. Maybe she's playing the slightly longer con of being like, we'll be together 2-3 years. You know what I mean? I'll get to integrate myself into my family. You know what I mean? I'll go visit my mom and dad. I'll go talk to them. I'll go meet everybody that I know. And then by that point,
a lot of air quoting going on.
Yeah, when I leave this motherfucker, because who wants to be with Ethan 1?
Nobody. Nobody likes
that
Ethan
fucking
1.
schmuck.
Yeah,
Hell no.
exactly. The moment that she flies the coop out of that guy, you know, what's he gonna say? He's gonna say that this lady is a doppelganger from some crazy villa dimension, you know what I mean, that is actively trying to sabotage the rest of his life.
And he's like, no, I'll show you Ted Danson. I'll show you his office.
Yeah.
No office.
No office,
It's not there anymore.
Exactly. I would imagine, right, that might be exactly what Sophie 2 is doing to a particular degree. And doing the tell, right, actually kind of allows her hand to soften a little bit. Because at this point, it isn't a full, even though there might be, you could say that there might still be some light deception, you'd have to be an idiot not to say that you didn't know from then on out.
Yeah, because they're not very similar.
What do you mean?
I mean, I just feel like how wouldn't he have known beforehand as well as that? Because I feel like the doppelgangers, well, I mean, they can look very similar. I think, like, the Sophies look a lot more alike than the Ethans do. But their personalities are totally starkly contrasted. Like, he couldn't get along with his wife. You wouldn't think it's a little bit suspicious that you guys are perfect after you leave?
Yeah.
Yeah, it might
Ethan, too, never came up again?
But if Sophie too was the same sort of Stepford wives-ish that she was during the villa experience, she could probably con everybody and everybody.
Exactly. That's
her
the whole point of the
family,
Stepford
Ethan's
wife
family.
like thing, right? Is the fact
Yeah.
that I mean you can sucker anybody into thinking, you know what I mean, through pretending to be a prey predator essentially, you know, like it's very very easy to showcase that or like get away with that kind of thing, you know. I would imagine that's probably the end game at the end of it all. At least for Sophie too. I can only hope that she doesn't want to stay with Ethan one.
For her own sake.
Yeah, for her own sake.
You know what? It's weird because part of me wonders if he became better or not, though, because it's like, I think the only likable quality, possibly, about Ethan 1 is his loyalty throughout the screen time that we see him.
Mm-hmm.
But obviously that gets shattered by his previous loyalty from what we understand.
And
Well,
is
not
it
only
even
that,
loyalty? It seems to me more pathological.
It
right?
is very well. The whole thing where he pretended to be Ethan too, I think, exemplifies that pretty well. Like,
Ooh, that was not good.
like
Yeah.
that's a downright dirty, rotten move right there.
Mhm.
I thought, like, watching this again, I didn't remember that scene, and I thought there was going to be, like, a gotcha moment at some point. But there wasn't. He
No.
just stuck out the whole thing.
Mhm.
Yeah, and he just used it to fuel his own narcissism and self-loathing and
Yeah, essentially.
And also get laid.
Mm-hmm.
yeah.
It
Well,
was
I mean,
like
he was probably pretty pissed off.
it's
that she
essentially
got
like what is it? Who was it? Lacan, who said there's like a paradox of the jealousy of the husband, who even if the husband is jealous because he thinks that his wife is cheating on him, he's actually the one who's pathological because it's his thinking about that essentially morphs everything in reality to like have it be that his wife is, you know, like cheating on him. So even if it does end up being that she's cheating on him, you know what I mean? Like that's such a in reality that fact is so small to like already like the gigantic narrative that he's already constructed inside of his head. You know, and that essentially seems to be the case happening here.
Yep.
Is the fact that he wants there to be a problem.
Yep.
You know, like especially because you would imagine that if he really did care, like say about the integrity of the situation, like he would have perhaps stopped her, like before they started having sex, like no, like it's like no, me Ethan, you know what I mean, like
right, and then maybe try to communicate why.
yeah, exactly. Be like, listen, like yeah, that could have been a perfect time for sincerity because he would have caught her on the back foot, right, and then been like, hey, listen, you know what I mean, like no big deal, you know what I mean, but it obviously seems like he told you something that you really wanted to hear, and like I would like to be able to know what it was, you know, like.
The problem is it was already incriminating because he mussed his hair and took off his glasses. So there's no denying.
Oh no, that's what I'm saying. I'm not saying that he has. What I'm saying is that he would have had to dispel, like, hey, no, listen, I'm normal Ethan before they start having sex.
Yeah.
That's what I'm saying. It's like, and then from there, use that moment in a constructive way of being like, okay, like what, you know, because she came in hot saying like, you said a couple things that made me feel really, really good.
Yeah.
You know, and he just essentially took advantage essentially of Ethan 2's work.
Yeah,
you know?
he sure did.
And
swooped in.
No wonder Ethan 2
Swooped in for the payoff.
no wonder Ethan 2 felt so inclined to have to like drop the reveal that situation.
I tell on him too.
Well, technically, Ethan 2 did sleep with Sophie 1 on like the first night of that getaway.
Sure he did.
Right?
Yeah, it's true.
Yeah.
He's trying to get out.
Yeah. Yeah. So, would Jose 1 wrestle with Jose 2?
I would
Would
really
there
like
be
to
some
know.
spats?
That's what I was thinking too. It's like it would be interesting because it is just a small degree worth of betterness, right? That they exhibit. It isn't like, you know, they bring out any form of Adonis like version.
20%
of this.
is not super small degree.
It's marginal, but it's recognizable.
It's still well
right?
enough, right? Okay, so imagine that you spend
Ethan
20%
especially.
of. Well, yeah. Imagine
one
if
Ethan's
you.
attractive and one's not. I don't know how they instill that so well, but they do.
Good
Lighting. It's
Yeah,
lighting.
it's all lighting.
Lighting, posture, wearing baggy clothes.
Take
You
that
know?
as
Yeah,
an
that's
example.
true.
Everyone watching this, find better lighting.
Also,
have better
glasses.
posture.
Like only nerds wear glasses.
Yeah.
Everybody knows. That.
Yeah, I mean that's that's been ingrained in us. You know what I mean?
Yeah, right.
For at least 5 generations
It's
now, and
the
I'm sure
style
since
of the
time
glasses.
immemorial.
Also,
She's
the hair
have you
is
tried
fun.
contacts?
Yeah.
The lights in the movie. After she hangs out with Ethan too for a
Yeah,
while.
she's like,
Have you
ugh,
tried
damn.
contacts? Have you
Yeah,
tried
I mean
them?
yeah, if we're gonna drop any introspective advice, yeah, don't get glasses that are exactly the same size as your eyes. And if you are,
think
get
they're
cool
less
colored glasses.
noticeable.
You know what I mean? Don't let them just, if you're gonna have artsy glasses, be a little bit of an artsy guy, which you're not, Ethan.
No.
You know?
You
No.
look like a
He
bad professor.
Yeah, he
Or
looks like a very bad professor. Yeah.
like a pervert professor, kind of.
Mhm.
It's creepy.
Yeah, because interesting. Just because we can see the stills that that are happening in front of us right
Mhm.
now. Yeah, and you can just tell just like the bad posture of Ethan 1. You know,
yeah,
that's
head
like-
forward.
yeah, absolute cretin.
What a degenerate.
Yeah.
Get him out of here. Yeah.
Yep. Take a good look in the mirror, whoever's watching.
So yeah, go on. You were saying about would you fight Jose too?
Oh no, yeah. What I was saying is it would be really interesting to see what it would be, what like 20% better version of oneself
Of yourself
would be like.
Oh yeah.
Like
yeah, that's so fun.
So it's not
Yeah.
objectively 20% better. I think it's 20% better in the eyes of your spouse.
Okay.
Oh, of course, yeah. I mean, like well, okay. So now we're getting into the gaze of the other.
Right.
If we're gonna get again deeply introspective about this matter, in the sense that like the doppelgangers do in fact essentially attain the entirety of their archetypal features through the, as you said, the gaze of the other spouse.
Yeah.
It's like yeah, because she's only a step forward. Like Sophie B is only a step forward wife-esque. You know what I mean? As I would imagine that the haziness of what they were actually probably able to gather from what Ethan 1 actually wants. You know what I mean? And just be like, I guess we're just gonna start here. You know what I mean? And then kind of like work, around that. And because of the fact that, as you said, Hannah, he never really gives her the time of day. There's no means to be able to morph it closer to, say, the Sophie that is actually more ideal to him, right? As opposed to, Ethan too, who like is gung ho about everything. He jumps in head first about what it is that Sophie requires, because I would imagine from the therapist sessions, she is nothing but just blabbing on about all the ways that Ethan is just not that guy.
Maybe that's part of it, is because of the therapy sessions and because of their specific situations, and because Sophie's more of an open book and Ethan's like totally closed off
And defensive, yeah.
Yeah, maybe that's why the matches didn't work there, is because like it's blatantly obvious to Ethan too what Sophie needs, whereas
Yeah, his
like,
assignment
Sophie
is far
too,
easier.
Yeah, Sophie too's kind of forced to phone it in. She's like, well, this guy's kind of an asshole, so
Yeah,
I guess
he's
I'm
a
gonna
prickly
be...
asshole who doesn't like to talk too much about his feelings. Okay,
Yeah.
make him bacon. All right.
Make him bacon. I'm gonna make breakfast.
Yeah.
I'm gonna be very
And she
agreeable.
wins. And she wins. What does that say about the state of the normal psyche? You know what I mean? If
man.
the movie essentially
It
states
was a
that,
last minute steal.
It was, but all I'm saying, it goes a long way for making breakfast in the morning.
Oh,
He was
right.
trying
Like-
to leave with his Sophie. He cornered his
Breakfast
Sophie.
goes a long
He
way.
talked to her. Like,
Mhm.
he was trying with everything he had to leave with his Sophie. She
And what is it about
stole it at
Sophie
the
B
end.
that Ethan too doesn't like? I wonder.
Just that he just knows she's not Sophie because he liked her perfectly fine when he didn't know she wasn't Sophie. He didn't like her when he knew she wasn't Sophie.
Yeah, so I'm wondering, is there going to be like this weird Raskolnikov-esque fallout where Ethan 1 lives forever with this crazy millstone of regret and disgust around his neck as he lives his life with Sophie 2, or is it...
Lives
he
his
like...
he lives the 2 years before Sophie 2 jumps
Jumps ship.
Yeah, exactly.
Or
And then he
murders
spends the
him in his
rest of his
sleep.
life thinking he could rescue Sophie 1
Yeah.
by bringing other women to the marriage
Yeah.
retreat. just charges in and straight to the guest house every time.
All right, bye.
Yeah.
Make yourself comfortable. There's a nice pool.
We'll see you tomorrow.
Yeah, no, it's really interesting because it's like, okay, there's so many like issues with either way of thinking about it, right? Because again, I was leaning closer to the whole they're fresh beings created for this instance, right? But then what are they gonna do with Sophie 1 now that she's stuck in there, right?
Well,
Because I mean, like, are they going to, you know what I mean, like have to like homunculi her like in Mother and like reset her too, like
the question
Right.
applies across the board, right?
Change
Because
her
that's what
appearance.
Sophie 2 said, is she was like, if you don't leave, then you have to stay here. Which implies that, like, others have stayed here.
Right.
Where are they if these are
Right.
fresh beings?
mm-hmm.
Yeah. And it's only ever 2 people and 2 people, so...
It must be, because only 2 leave, so it makes sense that they're just, like, shifting forms. And do they ever shift genders? Like, is this just for straight couples, or
Oh
how does
my
this
gosh.
work?
Yeah, is this gay day for Bay or is
Oh,
this
Jesus. The One I Love 2 is going to be groundbreaking and incredible. We're going to learn so much about this universe.
And
that-
very uncomfortable.
Yeah, so, this is rarely ever that important, but The One I Love, does this title speak anything to you after having seen the movie?
The One I Love? I mean, I guess at the end of the day, you could just speak about the fluidity of what that even means, right? Because initially they thought that they loved each other and that they were going to the retreat in order to reinforce the love that they already had for each other.
Mm-hmm.
When in reality, what they came to find out was the other ones that they in fact actually loved, because they, inhabited the actual features that they, So it's more like a finding of love as opposed to like a statement,
I like that.
If we're going, if I'm gonna say that the movie's themes and the title actually click in any way, I would say that that's probably the first thing that jumped into my mind. Now, having seen the whole thing,
Yeah, I think unfortunately, thematically, it is kind of a classical drama, Sophie 1 gets left behind. Nobody's really happy, probably,
Really, Sophie 1
in the
stays
end.
behind.
Yeah, well, that's what I mean. Like, this is like the true, like, an actual couple struggling, him for his narcissism and her for his infidelity, like trying to rekindle something of what they had, and their last ditch effort actually ends up tearing them apart in the most like sci-fi way that you can imagine.
Mm-hmm.
Like it really is like the ultimate loss on both ends. Regardless of whether or not either of these people has a happy life outside of the end of this movie, the ending itself is like, what a fucking bummer. Like on all like, holy shit, it's nothing but, like you said at the beginning of the movie, sad.
Yeah.
Sad.
That's the first thing I wrote. Yeah, I was like, I need a pen and pencil so I don't forget that.
I
That's
don't
sad.
sad.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Especially because I guess I'm really thinking back on the ending and like what would have like spurred Sophie 1 to forego freedom, you know what I mean, in that moment. And
She thought Ethan too loved her.
Not only that, but I have to imagine that the thing that for my mind really tipped the scales was his bullshit speech. His last speech was, although the movie did a good job of like framing it as though that was supposed to be like the big crescendo of his like characterization, if you really listen to what he said, it's a bunch of bullshit, you know what I mean? Because all he's saying is, I'm not gonna change, and like we either have to accept that and move on from here, you know what I mean, or like, or like, and then afterward he throws in like this weird authoritative aspect of being like, you're my wife, you know what I mean, and I'm your husband, and like we're gonna work it out, and that's when Ethan too comes in and they start fighting each other, right?
But she also got an opportunity to, from her eyes, I think, got an opportunity to have a version of her husband who didn't cheat on her, which is going to feel like a once in a lifetime opportunity.
For sure. But at the same time, that's not true either, though, because if we're going with the realities of the clones, sure, right? Like that, Ethan too carries the original sin of the original Ethan, because he was created after the fact. This isn't like Ethan, pre-cheating, you know what I mean? And
Right.
this is who you're dealing with. You're dealing with the best kind of Ethan who would have, accepted his faults and then tried to,
And even apologize.
and
like,
then and then
really
and then literally met you 90% of the way there to try to get you to understand. You know what I mean? It isn't as because. And the thing is that with Ethan 2, the reason why I can feel that as though he never even cheated is because they've already gotten past it. They had the conversation about it, so it doesn't have to keep getting brought up
And he
every
was willing
goddamn
to
time,
talk to her.
like Ethan 1 is having the issue with.
But either way, like,
and
I
even if
think
it
in
does
our
get brought up,
brains-
he'll be, he will once again posture to being like, yeah, no, you're entirely right. Like, like he said, is like sometimes you can be a bitch, and sometimes I can most certainly be an asshole.
And that's okay, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, but I do think either way, like, even if you look at it that way, like
Mhm.
clones after the fact, and it's not like separate version, separate person who's like posing as your husband. I do think either way, like in our brains, we're gonna think that only one of these people cheated on us, and it's the one that we remember confronting after the issue.
That's true.
So
I mean,
she
there are two
probably
different
gets
bodies.
to like forge some separation between him and that incident, and
That's
kind
true.
of take it back to the beginning.
Yeah, that clone body never did literally have sex with that woman. You know what I mean? That
Remember that,
Yeah.
whoever
and he
that
may or
person-
may not even have that memory. It's not even clear because the answers.
Oh
he
yeah,
gave
that's
her
true.
were
Because they could
vague.
just be clay. Yeah, they could just be like clay brained before, and then you
Right.
have to like fill them in with like what it is.
He didn't
afterwards.
even say
Implant
anything
all the therapy
specific to her
sessions. Mhm.
about it. When they talked about it, he didn't talk about any detail or anything. He
Right, it
just
was all
forward
vagaries,
facing.
yeah, all vagaries.
So I don't even know if he has a memory of that.
That's true.
That
Which
could be.
at the end of the day, actually makes it even more sad about the fact that Sophie 1 was so okay with that with his answer, because it is essentially just again vagaries of just being willing to prostrate for your genuine mistake. And that's just something that Ethan 1 was just never. It never seemed like he was ever going to be
Right.
able to do. Like he was always going to be defensive about something.
Mhm.
Oh,
know?
I think it's willingness to disbelieve in a big part. Because like if you cheated on me and I found out, I would be desperate for an answer that it was like I could be with you and know you and feel like you hadn't cheated on me or something like that. I think it's that so much like power of will with what she wants. Is she wants to be with her husband, but she wants to not have that part of her life.
Right. That part she can't let go of.
Yeah, I think ultimately that's what she wants in the end, and I think they were teasing about that from the beginning.
Yeah.
That is very true, because I mean, she is the one that wishes to stray into the fantasy more than he does.
Right.
Like he wants to stay grounded in.
Yeah.
Because
In-
he's screwed
In the
up.
reality
Like,
of things, yeah.
he can't get away from what he did.
Right.
Yeah, exactly. Because what's he gonna go talk to Sophie 2 about at
Right.
the end of the day, right?
Right.
It's like, how do you? Yeah, honestly, because how do you ever
I
have?
wish you let me eat bacon. Like,
Yeah. Yeah. Mm-hmm. Yeah, essentially, like that's about as far as he can go with their conversation, especially because
he has no major complaints.
he'll always not only assess his complaints, but always have to skirt around again the gigantic crater of trust that was his infidelity.
Yeah.
Like
Yeah.
they're
Oh,
all
the big elephant in the room,
mm-hmm.
as he sort of plays in, even
Yeah.
2 plays into a little bit
Mhm.
with the tic-tac-toe game.
Mm.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it's so cool how much there is to decompress and deconstruct from a 2-piece on cast,
Mhm.
Oh, yeah.
especially when they're given such a genuinely wacky and fluid environment to essentially work through the problems, right? Because again, it's a banal problem at the end of the day. I mean, infidelity is something that pretty much almost every couple throughout history, especially even prior, even the longer further back you go into time, the more prevalent it becomes. I feel like, if anything, perhaps our generation is becoming more I guess cognizant to the psychological impact that being unfaithful has to it, to their partner, as opposed to before, where it's
Both
everybody
parties.
was just very hush hush about everything. And I think also the fact that we were there just wasn't enough ways to keep tabs on people,
Right.
that it's just well, I mean, fuck, you just have to assume the best, you
Hope
know.
for the best, yeah.
Either hope for the best or genuinely close your eyes to what is right in front of you, and I guess assess, you know, especially because they, for all intents and purposes, have it pretty easy, right? It doesn't sound like they have any kids to have to consider. They don't have any like any ex. It doesn't even seem like they have pets. You know what I mean? Like if we're going to, you know, because they were able to go on this long couple days retreat and nobody thought about their dog or their cat. You know what I mean? For like the entire time.
Yeah.
You know, so these are two individuals who are already essentially living in a pocket dimension of their own. You know what I mean? Kind of floating, you know, on their own in terms of that.
Wouldn't it be weird if they did have kids and they were bringing back a new father to their child? I wonder if that would impact the loyalty of the situation at all.
Yeah, that's true. Especially, yeah. Oh, that would be so like a situation of like Case of the Body Snatchers kind of thing, you know, where like it would be the child would be like, "Mommy, why is Dad acting so weird? Like, why is he so cool all of a sudden?" You know, like that's not my dad. You know, my dad's a little 20% more neurotic than this.
I'm
I don't know.
positive.
I don't know, Mom. I'm just 20%, just on the tip of my tongue. Like that's just how much. You know.
What happened to Dad's glasses?
Yeah, honestly, like, do you guys get Did you get LASIK or?
Yeah. No, it's interesting because it does seem like that. It does feel like they set up the situation in a pocket where the only thing that these people are worried about is the two of them.
Mm-hmm.
Whereas, like, even in that situation where he gets all the voicemails, and I think his mother calls him.
Mm-hmm.
What about that? Like, what about bringing home the wrong daughter for your in-laws?
Mm-hmm.
Like, what are the complexities there?
But see, that's where again we go back into the long game of Sophie too, right? In the sense that, I mean, I already have the body of Sophie, you know, and at this point, as doppelgangers, they're already completely well within the concept, I mean, well within the parameters of just assimilating as time goes by. Like, what was Sophie 1 like? You know, like, I mean, you can't stop your mom or your dad, you know what I mean, from telling a story from back in the day anyway, so you just learn from that, you know, no matter what. You know, and then you just kind of glean from it, you know, without even having to really prompt people about it.
If you're one of the doppelgangers at the retreat or whatever, and you're in the body,
and I'm Jose B, and I'm 20% cooler, smarter, and more handsome.
No. Here's my question.
He would kill me. I'd be so afraid.
I know this. He's gonna kill
I'd
me.
be so afraid.
But here's my question though, like, if a couple comes who is like extremely unfortunate looking, are we competing to stay home?
Yeah.
Or do you want to go out into the world being that person?
Again, I would imagine that the long game has to come into it again, right? It's like the doppelganger will try to take on the life of the other individual and then divorce the other person, and then if they have, like, what's their defense? You know what I mean? Like, oh, my wife was actually body snatched? Oh, yes, sir. Yes, please. If you could just follow us this way into this padded fucking room. You know?
Sign this paper.
Mm-hmm, where you can give her everything.
Yeah.
And she will now become she'll now have power of attorney over you.
She'll take care of the assets, is what we say. She'll worry. You don't have to worry about a thing. Your wife will take care of everything.
Yeah, I mean, Sophie B most certainly stands to gain from the situation right now.
It's weird because Sophie B was such an unnotable character through almost the entire time.
Except for the fact that she most certainly did show her fangs and claws whenever she was left alone. You know, like, it wasn't as though she was like she had like no form of like ferocity to her, because when she was left alone with Sophie A in the kitchen and they were having like she was like, yeah, like she I don't know, like she saw right through her essentially, you know what I mean? Like she pretty much melted her with her eyes and then made her do the dishes. You know what I mean? Like, how do you like
insult to
yeah,
injury.
honestly, like, how do you make somebody more your bitch than that? You know, like,
yeah, she just drew that line right there, which was weird. Like, that's pretty much where we became wary of her, really, because she seemed like a non-character almost up until that moment.
And I'm wondering if, like, her whole situation where, like, she tried to, you know, test Ethan 2, let's say, by dressing as Sophie 1, if that was her moment when she decided that she was cutting him out of the plan in terms of leaving. You know what I mean? Like, she was like, you know, like, if you still love me and we can still do this together, we can still try to leave together. You know what I mean? Like, we're still, you know, 100% aces to try to like to do that. But he, I mean, maybe, and again, maybe because
she had a plan and a backup plan.
and not only that, but like I would imagine that because she has already considered how, you know, how full of ulterior motives Ethan 1 is, how much 20% more of ulterior motives Ethan 2 must be.
Maybe
you know,
20% better is fewer ulterior motives.
No. I would imagine that it's an upscaling of I would imagine it's an upscaling of everything, right? Like of scruples and everything.
Yeah, he's 20% better at making plans.
Yeah.
So boom, right there.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, so maybe her original intent, that was like try 1 at her plan, was to dress like her and come back down and pretend to be Sophie 1.
Especially because she
leave
was,
with
for all
Ethan
intents and
2.
purposes, losing the match, right? I mean,
Yeah.
like, because to the doppelgangers, this is a game for real. Like, you know,
This is the game.
this is the game to do, you know?
Yeah, we're
And
getting
I would
out of
imagine
here.
that, like, the stratagems that the two doppelgangers are probably trying to employ are probably completely, like, you know, 4D chess for each, like,
Right.
you know, upon each other,
Yeah.
you know?
Yeah.
Yeah, very good stuff. I mean, like that's like this again. The quiet speculation that this movie brings out is very very fun. You
So
know?
maybe on
And
paper,
so-
both Sophies prefer Ethan 2.
Ethan 2, 100%. Again, I made the joke about the fact that like Sophie once stayed and she's like, "Yeah, I'm gonna have a nice threesome with this nice couple, and maybe we'll talk about it in the morning, maybe."
If you're
only
lucky.
3
Yeah.
would leave.
Yeah.
We could just leave
Yeah, if only
Shane
3 of us could
one.
leave.
You'd be stuck here. Yeah.
Mhm.
Yeah, man. It's very cold, very like messy, emotional, with like the perfect comedic overtone because you can't not but laugh as it's going on. They're constantly cracking jokes, but you're right. It is like this really mellow.
They're cute.
Yeah, it's like this nice fluffy substrate that is like nothing but questions that you have to ask about this crazy universe that's unfolding before you.
And I think just the fact that
Mm.
Ethan, they did such a good job at characterizing Ethan 1 as a good heel. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Throughout the entire movie, that like you just, even though bad things are happening to him, you just can't sympathize with the guy. You know what I mean? Because everything about this is just so self-wrought. Like, you never would have had to step foot in this magical place if you hadn't, you know, committed the original sin all the way back there, you know? So it's just like, and it becomes very hard to sympathize with him when he is all woe is me about essentially getting the comeuppance about, you know, about his mistake, essentially, at the end
Very
of the day.
similar situation.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, because in the way that he was perhaps just carnally and, you know, unfaithful to his wife. Now his wife is being entirely emotionally unfaithful to him, you know, blatantly and in front of him, you know, as opposed to how he probably did, which all secretly
Right.
hush hush, you know, like.
Right.
Well, she probably feels more justified in it at that point.
Mm-hmm.
Oh yeah.
And especially, like, it doubles up because not only did he do that, but also this is like her husband as far as she's concerned.
And you know, and it's really interesting how I'm gonna give this directorial credit in the sense that like they tried to make you also kind of try to sympathize with Ethan 1 about the asymmetry of Sophie A having already had sex with Ethan 2. Right. And they're like, oh, like, you know, like, oh, well, you know, maybe it'd be fair. Like, they, you know, like, if they each got to have sex with, like, their clone situation, you know what I mean? And then maybe they're back on more, like, they're, you know, we're back on one-to-one with each other. And then from there, like, no more intimacy or whatever. You know?
Yeah,
But already, they're coming in from an asymmetrical position anyways, because he's already cheated on Sophie 1. So he's already essentially gone out of his way to essentially lay with somebody else that's not, you know what I mean? Within
and he did not sleep with Sophie 2 until, like, he thought it was his wife, you know, like, and we don't even know that, but throughout the
When did
course
they
of the
sleep
thing,
together?
Yeah, we don't know that Ethan 1 and Sophie 2 ever slept
Yeah,
together.
they only
that's
snuggled
what
on
I'm
the
saying
couch.
is he
yeah.
didn't. That's
Yeah.
what I'm
Oh,
saying.
okay.
Yeah.
I'm saying that throughout that, he showed no interest in her. He didn't make any attempt to sleep with her. Even after he was pretty sure that his wife had slept with Ethan too, he still didn't want it, which makes me wonder if, like, did he learn his lesson? Did he feel so shitty for what had happened? Did he want none of this? Like,
I think, you know, it's very difficult and it's very, very hard sometimes like the old saying says it's better to just apply stupidity to instead of bad intentions to
maliciousness.
to maliciousness to
The
an
thing
individual.
is, he still wanted his wife after he knew that she had slept with Ethan too. So much like what you said, that makes me wonder if he thought that they were even now, and they could walk out of here scot free.
Yeah, what a piece of shit.
I would have thought he was a bigger piece of shit if he slept with Sophie too.
After having already known that it was a Sophie 2 kind of situation.
Yeah.
I wouldn't have found it to be that big of a deal if it wasn't for the fact that he's the one that's so adamant about trying to create rules about this whole situation, right? Yeah.
He was very on top of that.
It's really fucked up because it seems like if you want to go back to let's say the primordiality of their relationship, right? It seems like it was built on a misconception of adventurousness, because what sparked the whole thing about them actually wanting to be together was the whole jumping into the pool. It was spontaneous because the guy came out and they ran away, you know what I mean? And it was like, oh, that kindled them to a degree that they were able to form some sort of hearth of a relationship around that fire, right? And that's beginning to go out, and they're now trying to duplicate that exact same moment again, but it obviously can't, you can't go back to the past. The river will never be the same again, twice. Mm-hmm. And I think the issue is coming from the fact that they are, they have a misconception of what they're, especially Sophie. I mean, my personal opinion, Sophie has a misconceived application of who she thinks Ethan is. Like, she thinks Ethan is still that adventurous guy from back then, when in reality it isn't. Oh, that's what she wants. When in reality it isn't. Sure, that spontaneous thing happened, but he's the kind of guy who wants to just reconstruct that spontaneous thing. Like, oh, it happened, cool. Like, let's just try to do that again. And you know what I mean?
That's a really good point. Is Ethan 1 at no point seems like the type of guy who's gonna jump into a stranger's pool with you, which gives you the idea that maybe he's changed a lot,
about 20%.
Or that was a total out of character.
20% worse.
Yeah, sure. He's become about 20% worse. Yeah.
And that's why Ethan 2 is quote unquote 20% better, is because
he's actually the plateau of Ethan.
And that's how she Ethan remembers him.
Yeah, because it sounds like Ethan 1 was fun, because he also made that comment about doing ecstasy at some place. He was like, but if we did that every day, but clearly they had fun and they let loose in their past, and it just seems like he's not that type of guy anymore.
Right.
And that's what I'm saying is there's a misconception coming mostly from Sophie about the kind of guy that she's expecting Ethan to continue being to a particular degree. And, Ethan is just stuck in a horrible place of his own making, because he can't ever actually call her out on that, you know what I mean? Because he's always stuck about having to be either defensive or entirely, prostrating about the fact that he already cheated on him, and he already essentially shattered the glass to a particular degree. So it's what can he do? You know what I mean? About her streaking her her nails on broken glass at that point. Yeah. So they're stuck essentially. They really, really are stuck in a loop with each other, because she wants something from him that he can't give her, and he can't make any form of protest because he has no right to, essentially. Yeah. But he's such a stuck in his ways kind of guy that he doesn't want to leave Sophie, even though it essentially puts him in a mind prison.
Oh, I think he loves her. I think he does. I think it makes him mad that he can't make her start over.
Yeah, I think in a way he realized how much he fucked up, and that's why he's so willing to try anything to fix the fuck up.
But he's not willing to admit mistake for some reason.
Well, not in the way that she wants it anyway.
Right.
We can't. I mean, we can assume that she's not satisfied, right, with whatever he's given as far as an answer or an explanation.
Because we can only assume that the words that Ethan 2 said were something that Ethan 1 never said.
Right.
Well, even him saying Ethan 1 strikes me as a type of guy that's gonna say I'm sorry and think that they can move on from there.
And that's what we're saying.
Whereas Sophie needs to understand why he did it in order to have any assurances onto why she should stay in this relationship.
Yeah.
And you know what that makes me think about is the fact that perhaps you're right in the sense that they did have this conversation before, and perhaps Ethan 1 went on this long, tirade about the things that might have pushed him to do so.
Right.
When in reality,
Blaming.
Ethan too,
Shifting blame.
yeah, exactly. When in
Yeah.
reality, Ethan too says the quote unquote right thing about the
There's
fact
no
that there is
excuse.
no excuse about why
And
he
he
did it.
reiterates.
Yeah,
like,
that he
3
was just a
times or
weak
something.
guy.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? That
He
just
didn't
ended
even
up.
try to
Mhm.
make an excuse.
Yeah.
He said,
Yeah.
I was insecure and we were drifting apart.
Yeah, exactly. Like those two things are facts, right? And
I
like,
made a horrible decision.
Mhm.
Yeah, or terrible decision. Yeah.
and like, and here we are in this weird place, and I'm willing to stick it out to try to make it work.
Mhm.
All of those things being that I can only imagine that Ethan 1 never bothered to say, you know, because Ethan 2, I mean, those words could not have had that kind of impact upon Sophie if they would have just been a regurgitation of something that might have happened in the past, right?
Yeah,
Because we can picture this as a different movie, you know, where perhaps that moment would have been a dispelling motion, you know, moment,
Mhm.
wherein like she remembers the fact that, oh shit, Ethan 1 actually did bother to, like, you know,
Or
try to, you know, but I was so angry at that moment that I was not willing
Mhm.
to, you know what I mean, like.
No,
You
her
know?
asking Ethan too why he cheated on her translated to me as desperation.
No, for sure. I'm just
Yeah,
saying, like, you can
yeah.
you can view a different movie wherein like that, like, as opposed to her falling deeper, because like that moment was a pivot moment in my
Yes.
personal opinion,
Mhm.
right? Like, you could see a different movie where that moment could have dispelled her from the desire to continue the fantasy,
As opposed to spelling her
as opposed to essentially enchanting her more.
enchanting.
Yeah,
Yeah.
like this movie did, and essentially bringing her down all the way down the rabbit hole to the
Yeah.
degree that now she's caring for fucking deaf Ian with,
Yeah.
you know,
Yep.
Ethan. Yeah.
Yep.
Mm-hmm.
Whoa.
Yeah.
Yeah, we're almost close to talking about the movie about as long as the movie actually ran for. So.
Yep, I think
Which
we're
is
right
usually
about there.
when we start to cut it off.
The last thing I
We've got
have.
It's good stuff though. I mean, it's just really, really, again, like the movie is really tight, but
So
it's
many
like it's
options.
dense in the sense that like you try to unbuckle a couple pieces of it and it just really starts to just fly out in every
Mhm.
direction.
Yeah, it is perfect at an hour and a half. There, in my opinion, you can't cut or add anything to this. So
Any
make it
extra
better or worse.
exposition would keep us from being able to, what's it called, do these types of like long form assumptions essentially about like the universe to a particular degree.
I really think one of the greatest like ways that you can tell if we're talking about a good movie is when we throw out a theory and all of our theories trigger new theories and it turns into that type of conversation.
Mm-hmm.
Clearly, we are talking about like a heavy movie.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. And at 90 minutes, like, that's a dense meal.
Especially when we're not doing that and just having plot holes be the thing that just create new
Yes.
like new things that that create like new theories of thinking about things.
To, like, the credit of the characters in the movie itself, they do really do a good job of, like, questioning, like, what are the rules in this place? And,
Yeah.
like, how do we function in this crazy universe that has
Mhm.
doppelgangers and shit? Like, I really like the fact that they brought that to the surface, because then we can mystery along with the characters as they go through this.
Right. And I mean, at the same time, it showcases, you know, from a viewer's perspective that sometimes you, even though it might seem important, you can sometimes begin to obsess over the wrong thing within the context of the circumstance. Because again, I mean, Ethan 1 wasn't wrong about wanting to investigate the supernatural aspects and rules about the place, but because of that, he was essentially missing the entire meta point about the situation and slowly but surely losing his wife to Ethan 2.
Digging his own
Yeah.
grave.
Like, I would imagine, right, that let's say that the therapist is the arbiter of the rules in this situation, because the therapist seems to be the one to train the doppelgangers to a particular degree to, you know, modulate and everything, right?
Mhm.
So, being the arbiter of the rules, it's not as though he wants Ethan 1 to lose and Sophie, you know, either Sophie 1 or Sophie 2 to lose, right? But it's like, if anything, the ideal versions of this couple should leave and go into the world and flourish in that way.
Oh,
You
yeah.
know?
Oh yeah, improving the human race, really.
To a
One
particular-
couple at a time.
Yeah, exactly. Just essentially pruning in that particular way, being like, I'm not gonna put you with two different people, but I'm gonna put you with the best aspects of the individual that you already have.
That's a whole other level too. Like that's a whole other thing to discuss.
Mhm.
Because if it is in the eyes of the other spouse too, you're just picking a slightly better partner for them than the one that they picked.
Well, it depends too. I mean, like, I guess the deviation is entirely dependent on the rift of the marriage, right?
Yeah.
Because if you
Yeah.
guys are just, let's say that you guys go there, you know, as a retreat, you know what I mean, and you guys meet your doppelgangers, and they're like pretty much the exact same. You know what I mean? Like,
Right.
they're like literally the exact same. Like, there isn't like this big deviation in the
tell,
same
yeah.
way that, like, you know, with Ethan and stuff, and you guys just get along really, really chummy. You know what I mean? And not because the other gangers, doppelgangers, are like providing something that the other partner has a deficit in, you know, but it's just essentially a doubling up of the good thing that you already have. But at the same time, you would never end up in that villa if you were in that position.
That type of person.
Yeah,
Or,
exactly.
yeah.
Like
Couple,
there already has to be a negative predisposition to essentially open the gates to like having that kind of situation, that game
Yeah.
occur, right?
They're sending susceptible people into this.
Yeah, because
This
the
is a-
game.
yeah,
Yeah,
that's
yeah,
right.
because the game
Right.
wouldn't be fair to the doppelgangers either, right? If like
They were
if
perfect couples. They didn't even go to the guest house. Or as soon as they discovered the guest house, they were like, "Let's get out of here." Because
Mhm.
that's
Yeah,
what you
'cause
and
they
I
can
would
leave
do.
at
We
any-
would see that, and
Yeah.
we would be like, "We want to go home."
I gotta get the fuck out of this sci-fi place.
Yeah.
I
What
don't
is
wanna
this,
be
Eureka?
part-
What the fuck?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh damn! What an old callback.
Yeah.
You never watched Eureka, did you?
No.
That's okay.
Yeah, it's just very cool. But yeah, because they leave to the diner, right? So they leave the entire residence, and then they come back and decide that they're going to want to continue trying out.
Explore it.
Yeah,
Yeah.
like if someone with a happy relationship shows up there, because I think about like Matt and I through this movie, it's like as soon as I went in there, as soon as I got an inkling of what was going on, like as soon as the scene where they send each other in, I feel like we would both be like, this seems like a strange risk to our relationship. Oh, let's leave.
Do we take the blue pill? And
I would be very,
see
very-
how far the
Yeah.
rabbit hole goes.
What do you think you and Kimmy would do?
Yeah.
Probably have a foursome with.
You
Our
can't.
clone
You can
selves.
only see one at a time.
No, apparently. You
No,
can all
no,
be in the
that-
same
that-
room
Not
at
at
the
the
same
No, that's
beginning.
not
time.
true.
Not
That's
at
not
the
true. That's not
beginning.
true. Yeah, that's right. You have to create a rift in order for them to be able to all show up at the same. If we're gonna believe the genuine,
You
like
have
the
to
rules
accuse them
as they're
of being
showcasing, and
clones.
So
Yeah.
can you plan a rift in a way?
Don't get meta. I want to hear what Jose and Kimmy would do.
All right.
I mean, I don't know. I mean, I guess you just kind of put a damper on what we would have done, because we would have to create essentially an intentional rift to get to the degree
Right.
where
No, but,
like
like,
all
at-
like where
no,
the
no,
planes
no.
would meet.
At
Yeah.
the beginning, when you and Kimmy first discovered what was going on, you first get the
Okay, so
feel.
first night.
Do you and Kimmy go home after you test it? You both are confirmed in your head that there's doppelgangers in there that are slightly different. Do you and Kimmy go home, or do you continue the experiment? That's the yes or no question.
Well, Kimmy's not here, but
Yeah,
you tell us.
I would say
I
that
would
we
say-
probably
You can
would
guess.
stay. I would say that we probably would stay. Again,
Interesting.
from my
Really?
perspective of
I think
investigation.
they'd be out.
Huh?
Yeah, I mean, that's well, go
No,
ahead.
I would say that I would probably stay again, because hyper skeptical person that I am, right? I'm not militant in my skepticism. So if I'm placed in a position, right, where I am in this either weird sci-fi place or weird fantastical place, I mean, how many other humans get the opportunity to do this kind of
So,
situation, right?
Jose is
And
saying,
again,
Don't
what
start
is
fight with me.
like what is the and again I would have to wonder, who's spending these space eddies or like space credits in order to be able to like get me, get me this, like, what are they trying to get me to learn? You know what I
Right.
mean? Like, what's the moral of the story here if somebody has bothered to pull me out of my mundane life, you know what I mean, and put me in this situation, Either they want me to learn something or they want us to get frisky with each other. You know what I mean?
in which
Why
case,
would they
like,
want that? Like,
Why
would
not?
they
Why?
get to-
What interdimensional
not?
cable? Are you kidding me? You think within the confines of interdimensional cable there aren't active porn channels that are nothing but clones
like,
of each other?
can we get this couple to fuck
Fuck
their
their
clone
clones.
couple?
Yeah.
Tune in to next Wednesday.
Oh yeah,
Perfect.
Force Company 2.
Yeah, Force. This is such a great question.
Yeah.
This is.
Oh yeah, this is entirely interdimensional cable
Interdimensional,
situation.
yeah,
You
for
know what I mean?
sure.
And yeah, I don't know. Again, how did I get here? Right?
How did I get here?
How did I get here?
I don't want to lose. I don't want to lose by asking the wrong question. So, yeah, I don't know. It's difficult because
What
it's
if
like,
you lose by losing your marriage in the process?
Which one?
How would I though?
What do you mean, which one? You only married one.
But it's like
how do you know?
But it's like
you know at the beginning. That's what I'm saying. Is if you cut your losses
but therein lies
early,
the issue. It's like, how would I lose? Like how would I lose my marriage, right? If unlike Ethan, if unlike Ethan, I'm willing to concede the fact that perhaps like they're showcasing, our better selves. You know what I mean? For a reason, like.
If you're unlike Ethan, you probably don't end up here.
Right. That's what I think the conclusion we came to. If you're not like Ethan 1,
yeah, you don't end up here. Yeah.
You don't find Ted Danson.
Mm-hmm.
You don't play his stupid piano game, and you don't wind up in the cabin in the woods.
No. I really wish that Kimmy would have participated in this one so I could get like the mixed
bag.
It
will be fun. Yeah, we can find another one like this probably with like weird.
Yeah, I mean, I don't want to speak for her, but I could most certainly say that I would be willing to check it out. And I could I feel like my desire to want to check it out would probably fuel her to want to also check it out. If it was in fact that she did have any reservations, because I'm trying to picture Kimmy and I can't see her having too many reservations about.
All right, how can I feel that wrong? Because it's like if I, like on paper it seems like cheating or something crazy, but I do think it's weird because it feels like to me, and I think this is what happened in the movie. If I said bye to you and then walked into a cabin and saw another you, I would feel comfortable still, just in some ways. On contrary wise, if you said bye to me and walked in the cabin to another me and I was sitting outside, I would feel uncomfortable.
Right, well that's the second level question here, like we were trying to pressure on Jose. Mm-hmm. If we were in this situation where, regardless of the past or whatever, we meet up with our doppelganger selves in the dining room and they're like, let's make mimosas, and a couple hours go by. Do we end up in a foursome with ourselves?
I'd say yeah.
I want to say no.
I would most certainly say yeah, because I would imagine. Okay, again, there's either two things. Either they're just plateau us.
What's your answer?
I don't know.
Either they're just plateau us, right, and they're just as cool as we are, right? So it's like, what do we have to lose? Because my biggest issue really when it comes to any sort of not only aside from just like the social I guess issues that come with having to be in any form of polyamorous relationship or trying to do that kind of thing with other people is the what's it called, the sexually transmitted diseases. You know what I mean?
They are past people.
Yeah, exactly. Well, that's what I'm saying. I mean, if they're fresh beings.
If they've been in the cabin for 6 rounds.
Oh,
yeah, if they're fresh, exactly, it'd be difficult. That would be one of the things that I would have to investigate because I am very prickly when it comes to that kind of thing. You know what I mean? It's getting an STD sounds like something that I just would, do not want to do. So
it
because
does?
Yeah.
What?
Hey, some people have absolutely no care in the world, So it's
That's true.
Yeah, so I mean, they're
crazy
there are really really crazy people who have absolutely no care in the world. But I'll just go to the clinic and get a shot,
I'll take a pill, whatever.
Everything. Yeah.
But whatever, you know what I mean?
Fair point.
So I would imagine if these are, if these are absolute doppelganger, claymation people, essentially, you know what I mean, that just happen to have, be imposed with our personality or whatever, I wouldn't see an issue with it, because it'd just be, like a joy toy, like they call in, Cyberpunk, it's just...
Oh, yeah.
It's
or
just...
Lucy Liu in Futurama.
Mm-hmm.
No, I think there's a difference between issue and risk, though. You have to consider, the implications on your existing relationship from things like that. Whether it's morally wrong or not doesn't necessarily translate exactly to whether or not it's a risk for your existing relationship.
Well, you'd have to sit down with your doppelgangers and talk about it, right?
Well,
at least step
and
one.
And your wife or husband, presumably.
Right.
First.
Maybe step one, your wife.
I would imagine the doppelgangers
two,
already have probably a pretty good parameter as to what your conventions are going to be anyways. Right. So they probably wouldn't...
Are they? Or are they the previous people?
Well, I don't know. Yeah, I mean, it's difficult to say. I mean, I think we kind of established the fact that they're probably, fresh people because, again, if one of them got out, why aren't they trying to find their other family or, trying to get some grievance for the fact that they got changed from black people to white people, you know what I mean?
Or maybe they are, but we don't know about it.
I mean, I just think,
Exactly. I mean, I don't know,
You can't throw it out.
No, you can't throw it out.
So this is a very fun movie. It's okay.
Let's
I don't know.
talk
Again, stipulations. I guess I would say the stipulations would be if they're fresh sleeve doppelgangers, and we can know that to a particular degree. You know what I mean? And they're just, I guess better featured versions of us. I would see no reason why we wouldn't, both have fun with them and wine and dine and maybe have sex with them too.
I wouldn't touch that with a 10-foot pole, because I would think that, like, idealistically, having fun with wining and dining and potentially having sex with a version of your partner that's objectively 20% better of a version of your partner.
Subjectively.
Switches are happening. For
Subjectively.
sure. Like,
Okay,
I don't know. I guess it depends on.
or the real
I guess it would all
versions get
depend.
kicked to the curb
It would.
for being shitty.
Well, this is a good kaleidoscope of insecurity, I suppose, at that point, right? Because it's like, would you as the base individual feel so insecure having to see your 20% better, doppelganger?
I don't think it's about
what I mean?
that. It's about, do you want to keep your partner, or do you want to?
No,
like,
I think at the
open
end of the day, it
yourself?
just comes down to insecurity. Really, it's a kaleidoscope
Wow,
of
I'm
insecurity.
officially offended.
No, I
You need to let me finish my question before you say insecurity one more time.
I had already said that initially. You're the one that cut me off. I initially said that it's a kaleidoscope of insecurity because it's you, right? If we're going with the whole they're fresh sleeve clones and they're not other people that have like been morphed into,
right.
you
Very
know.
important distinction.
It's you that's better, though.
But it's also.
But we don't know that either, right? We also
You
talked
said
about.
20% better.
But we also
That's
talked about the fact that if we were to go in there, how would they actually give us better versions of ourselves if we were already in a happy relationship? Or would they even be able to do that?
Is there better versions?
Yeah, exactly. Like there obviously is objectively, all right. Even past the the otherization of Sophie, there's obviously a better version of Ethan. You know what I mean?
Objectively
Of all of
doesn't
us,
necessarily apply to your partner, though, or individual people, because things that people might find, like potentially this is just potentially unattractive about Matt might be things that I find attractive about him.
Right.
Okay, so then the clone would come out exactly looking that way. Right? The clone would come out looking the way you would. Yeah, exactly. So wouldn't you find it highly flattering then? And that's what I'm saying in terms of Kimmy and I being there. Like I can't think of having like a hotter Kimmy appear, you know what I mean? And then we hung out, then we hang out. Like what I'm saying is we're already in a happy relationship. So if this were to happen to us, like plucked out and then created in this way, you know what I mean? Like they would probably scan our brains for our pathologies and see, you know what I mean? Okay, like this is going to be the clones, you know what I mean, based on the otherization of your spouse. Wouldn't it be so flattering if what comes out at the other end is essentially you? Like there is no differentiation in your clone, you know what I mean? Like
it would be, but and maybe this is insecurity, but how much would it suck?
What would?
If whoever came out of the clone machine or whatever is actually like 50% different.
Oh, 50% now. Holy shit.
I'm just saying it's all a risk. Like lots of people
It's
don't
all a
really
risk.
quickly.
Yeah. Well, you gotta roll them dones, baby. You
Don't
gotta roll
come
them
to
bones.
the island alone.
Yeah,
unless you're ready
exactly.
to give
Don't stay on the
discipline.
villa
What
if you're not willing to
one
roll the
clone-
bones.
What if one clone comes out the same for one partner,
Well,
and
then
the
you
other
have-
clone comes
well,
out
then you
totally different?
Well, then you have things to talk about then, right? Yeah. Well, then there most certainly is a lot of marriage counseling to be done at this villa retreat for couples that are astray.
I think what we found
Again,
out is that the
let's
Rick and Morty
let's
marriage
consider
retreat is
the fact
next
that
one.
if we're really gonna talk about the concept of like trying to have sex with the doppelgangers in any way, I would always say that would be the end result situation of you getting along with your doppelgangers so well the entire rest of the time. Like you wouldn't have hang-ups with them, you know what I mean, the entire time.
If you have
and
sex
they might
with your doppelganger, you probably want to stay with them at the end of the day.
Like
if you get led to that point.
Like in a homosexual relationship?
Oh, you mean sex with your own, like you having sex with Jose too?
No, that's what I'm wondering why you're saying. Like, why would you want to stay with your own doppelganger? You know?
No, I just meant like the couple doppelgangers.
Oh, the couple
I wasn't talking
doppelganger.
about like my own doppelganger.
But why would you want to do that either if both of them are essentially a symmetrical, just reiteration of the foundational spouse, right? Like, unless again you're coming in there already with issues that make it be like, I remember when my husband was better, and that's what's going to frame the clone to be X amount better, you know, like. There again, that's what we're saying about Ethan. Like Ethan is a very good focal point for this movie because the
'Cause he's so
clone can
upset.
be 20%, 30% better, and we can see it like
Yeah,
right away.
easy.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Again,
it's really a
if we
compliment
actually, if there
to
actually
Sophie.
is, thank you, Hannah. Finally, rounding up, doing the
But
long.
she's similar.
You
Yeah.
brought her back in.
I was like, I can't believe I'm losing you on this. Like, how would you not want to have sex with the doppelgangers?
No, I still don't know if I'm there yet, but I understand what you're saying.
Yeah.
She's 20%.
Got it. Okay.
Keep going.
I'm glad we're making
Yeah,
progress.
yeah. See, this is the doppelganger that would come off the other end, already understanding of what the
Yeah, if I
rules
was
of the
married to you,
of what the
that's
rules
hand
of the
that would
three
come out the other
foursome would be
side.
like.
Yes, you're so right. You're
Yeah.
so right.
I agree
completely
with everything you say.
No, wait, that'd be so strange.
Yeah,
Ooh.
Kind of upsetting, actually.
Ooh, yeah.
And that's why we don't live in the universe.
And that's why it would never happen to couples such as ourselves, let's say. You know,
Because
like
we'd believe with the wrong people, probably. If we're
Mhm.
happy couples, like we wouldn't know who was who after 5 minutes.
yeah, those things could sabotage the shit out of us.
Oh,
Because I
we'd
mean,
be
like,
fucked.
yeah, exactly.
Yeah, we'd be fucked. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. So there you go. So if anything, that actually, in my mind, showcases the fact that there's more of a moral value to the enclosure than there is like an opportunistic value by the clones, right?
Mm.
Because if it really was about trying to make it as simple as possible for the clones to leave, then it would be a lot easier to bring in people that are already happy. You know what I mean? And then just do Mirror's situation the entire time and be like, oh, sorry, you know, like.
Whoopsie doops.
Mhm.
Yeah, we'd all
Yeah.
spend like 5 minutes as that Spider-Man meme where we're all
Yeah.
pointing together and then two
Mhm.
of us would just leave.
Well, we're getting out of
But
here.
but then again, to round it back to the rules of the thing, is it important to have to cause that rift though? Like, is that what grounds the bubble reality, let's say, into the real world? You know what I mean? Like that rifting causes them to both collide, and then that's when the clones have the potentiality of actually leaving.
I
So
think
this
it comes
was like-
down.
Go ahead, Hannah.
You go ahead.
I was just gonna say, I think it comes down to what the actual meaning is of the whole experiment. You know,
Mhm.
it's like what, like the therapist character, what's the actual end game there? Is it to replace marriages with better marriages and do away with other things? Is it to teach certain humans a lesson? Is it, you know, because presumably set up the clone cycle. So,
Hey. Oh, sorry.
I guess end game is what answers that question.
Yeah, I figured it out. This is
Oh, you
The
figured
Good
it out.
Place version 0.5. This is the alpha version of The Good Place,
Essentially,
which
yeah.
Ted Danson has set up in advance
Mhm.
before creating the actual Good Place.
Yeah, and I'm pretty sure that Ethan is the human that was a piece of shit, and everyone else is a demon.
This is the very first version. Let's see what I
Yeah,
can
it's like,
do
can
to
we
this
do it in like a
fucking guy.
small enclosed area with two people? Okay, that works. That
Give me
works.
one guy. Give
Yeah.
me one guy. I
Yeah.
can do it. I can do
Yeah.
it. I'll make everything seem great.
Yeah,
Except it won't be.
yeah. You'll see. It'll be so subtle.
Okay, so I know we agreed. Well, we didn't necessarily agree to or not agree to, but if you had to give this a star rating
Mm-hmm.
on some sort of level, whether it be like just general star rate or like mental thriller, comedy drama, it's more of a drama than anything. But where are you falling on?
I would say it is a 5 out of 5 in terms of rom-com thriller.
Ooh, it's like a brand new comedy. It's
Yeah.
like Speed plus, well, rom-com thriller.
Yeah, I would say that's essentially, this is pretty much, well, I don't know if I'm using the word properly, but this like a seminal piece for that kind of, like, even if it would be a new genre, which I doubt it is, but like, I think it's it hits every single proper beat in terms of what it should, because again, even though it has a lot of fantastical aspects to it, it never really moves its finger from the button of what it really wants to showcase in terms of like the humanistic angle about it, right? It's like how even when given an Eden-esque place to try to like work through your issues and stuff like that, like no matter where you go, there you are, kind of thing, and you'll always bring your like the kind of baggage that essentially put you in that shit place to begin with.
Like you said earlier, you never step foot in the same river twice, kind of. Yeah.
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 And, Ethan is a guy that really wants to,
Mm-hmm.
He really, really wants to go back to that place. And
He wishes, yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. The one I love, TOIL, is the acronym for it, which is like a good acronym for what this poor bastard had to go through to try to fix his marriage.
Did you see that in a review? Or
Which
did you
didn't
just
even
put that
work out.
together?
No, well, when I was trying to punch in the things on the YouTube description, I was like, maybe I'll just do shorthand. And I was like, oh, it spells toil. But no, nobody would understand that because I have to put the title of the movie in there.
I wonder if that's on purpose.
Yeah, that's very interesting.
Well, because it's not the one that I love. It's the one I love.
Yeah. Which, again, if we're going to be talking about the narrative significance of the title, I mean, it kind of sounds more like a statement from Sophie, trying to figure out which one of the Ethans it is that's even better to actually love at the end of the day.
Which one do I love?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Damn.
Yep.
Well, once again.
That was a very, very good conversation.
I'm so glad you came.
Yeah, very glad that we had it, for sure.
Kimmy, we wish you were here.
Yeah, on the next one. We'll get her one of these days.
We'll keep asking.
Yeah, but aside from that, I hope everybody has a good day and a good night.
Good night.
Good night.